All right, let's talk
that
about this
you
interview.
believe that some people took you out of context. And I do agree. Look, on both the right and the left, there are these gatekeepers, 100%. And look at me. The mainstream press just destroyed me for 7 years without any real kind of reflection about what they were doing. I do.
So let's pause it already. This is so obscene. This like both sidesism that he's trying to do here. The mainstream he like they did not destroy him because he was innocent. There was a laptop filled with rather incriminating footage of him, strung out with paid women, shall we call them? I believe you can't say their true name on here. So he was up to that. And he's, of course, the vice president's son, later the president's son. So, of course, it's a very sensational story. It's like it's so brazen of him to try and compare his so-called, he's calling it a cancellation, which is also, it's like saying, you commit a crime and you go to jail and you're like, the judge canceled me. I got canceled by the court system. The police canceled me. It's like, that's not really how this word is used. You know what I mean? So this is already obscene. And not to mention, this guy ran around collecting bags of cash using the name of, like, he's using, like, the office of the presidency to collect bags of cash in these foreign countries. He's getting put on the board of different companies for seemingly no reason, making enormous amounts of money doing so. And he's got the nerve to just be like, oh, they canceled me. How come they were so mean to me? Just obscene, but let's continue.
Think that, some of those things are legitimate reasons to say, we don't want you on our, on our commercial platform. Would you agree with that? I mean, you just said, for instance, people calling for like an armed revolution, like people calling for actual violence. You're opposed to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm against violence.
Yeah.
And I do think those are one of the legitimate things that should be taken from the platform. There's a lot of the stuff on social media I don't agree with, but again, what started to happen is there was this like editorial censorship where certain ideas were banned. And it was such a broad brush and also totally opaque and ad hoc. You'd be on YouTube, like I was, for example.
Also kind of obscene here, like, Hunter Biden broke the law in such a clear way. It's nothing like what happens to people who get deplatformed on social media. But anyway, let's go on.
They banned me for life and didn't even give me a reason. Not a specific quote, not a specific infraction. And so you don't know what the rules are. You don't know what the process is. They just take you down. And especially now when everything is digital, that's not just the social platforms, it's the other ones like Uber, Airbnb, whatever. It feels like you're being denied almost something like a civil right, because the social platforms are the modern public square. Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb, the banking apps, you can't live your life without the tech platforms. And it felt like if you just simply had the wrong opinions or you were the wrong kind of person, you were being deprived of like a basic civil right or being able to participate in society. So, and I think maybe that's an area of collaboration where we recognize maybe it is a civil right to use the digital platforms, but here are the rules. Here's what you can say. Here's what you can't say. Here's the process.
It's also like, are you listening? Like Nick's making perfectly reasonable points here. But I just have to stop it to just take in that Hunter is someone who's just a seemingly unashamed lawbreaker in the most, committing some of the most obscene crimes. And, we're supposed to act like there's some kind of parallel here between what happened to him and what happened to Nick Fuentes. Just kind of crazy.
Maybe there's a reconciliation mechanism, but I mean, the censorship was just out of control. I don't think anyone disagrees there's a reasonable limit, though.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm saying is that I don't see that as a result of left-wing or right-wing ideology. I view that
not a result of left-wing or right-wing ideology. Who does he think was behind the canceling on social media? Like, y'all remember the Twitter files where, regardless of how you feel about Elon Musk, it was I think one of the most interesting things that he did was releasing those files that showed that the government was influencing Twitter. And then later Mark Zuckerberg came out and said they do that to Facebook and Instagram too. They were saying oppress this story, which actually wasn't what funny you bring it up. Wasn't one of the stories actually the Hunter's laptop It was. Facebook was told to suppress Hunter's laptop. Hilarious that this man is so bold, isn't he? This is crazy. But, Bush, which you can say it's because of the time that Bush was there. Of course, Bush not the best president, but he wasn't controlling Facebook from behind the scenes. Did it even exist when he was in office? But still, regardless, you can't say like both sides when there are no Republican leaders who have done this that we know of, that have gone and influenced like social media behind the scenes to have different people deplatformed. Just kind of, at least no one that the left didn't also want to be deplatformed, I suppose, if that happened at all.
Kind of level of deplatforming. Look, I was debanked. I was debanked before I was ever even charged with anything. I lost every bank account. It took me, 9 months once they, the Trump administration, said that they were starting an investigation into me to be able to actually get a bank account again. And
You ran around the world using your father's position as vice president to make a ton of money. What are you talking about? Like comparing this to, the tyranny of, like, say, 2016 social media where they were just kind of banning people left and right, not explaining anything. He's like, yo, that totally happened to me. I committed thousands of dollars worth of fraud. I used the office of the presidency to enrich myself, and they investigated me. I was canceled. It's crazy.
Still, I don't want to tell you the bank because tomorrow they may debank me again. But my point is that those people are incredibly identifiable. I've been talking and going around and I say things like, I don't think we are nearly as divided as they're telling us we are. Because I do believe that
He said those people are incredibly identifiable. Hunter, please identify them.
There are an identifiable group of people that are responsible for an enormous amount of the discord and division because they make money off of it. I think that these social media companies that are controlled by 3, 4, 5, individuals.
3, 4, 5 individuals. Spoiler alert, he never names them. Just crazy. And I'm sure if you pressed him, he'd say Elon Musk, which took over Twitter fairly recently, all things considered, before a lot of what they're talking about even happened. But name the rest. Who are these 3, 4, 5 people? It's not a lot of names. He says they're identifiable individuals several times. Like, what is their political leaning? What groups do they have an affiliation with? Like, Hunter, please enlighten us. I can't wait to learn these 3, 4, 5 names. Well, we never learned them, but whatever. Maybe next time someone interviews Hunter, please ask him. Also ask him for the name of the conservative one. Name some of the conservatives who own these social media platforms that are behind this, because he said it's a both sides issue. So let's see the people from both sides. And if you're going to complain that I'm like defending the conservatives, so-called conservatives, I guess, in some cases, that I'm defending them too much here. When it comes to social media, like tyranny, the left kind of has a monopoly on that. Let's continue.
Have made it clear that they only care about one thing. They only care about how much money they can produce for themselves and, the people.
I'm sorry to keep stopping it. That's not true either. They don't only care about how much money they can produce for themselves. These social media platforms we've seen them several times over the years make decisions that harms their bottom line to promote an ideology that they think is important. That has happened numerous times. So he's really out of touch.
People that hold stocks in their company, even to the degree where we know for certain that they're driving teenage girls to the highest levels of suicide by a factor, like exponential factors, directly related to the content that they're being pushed, and they won't do anything about it.
Another kind of insane point. He doesn't really talk about what content he's referring to here, but this is a fairly well discussed issue that social media is bad for young people. They say it's especially bad for girls, but how could you look at like the horrors of, clavicular and not think that this is being terribly destructive for young men as well? But they talk about this like, oh, it's so bad for girls. And he's kind of implying that like some kind of harmful content is being pushed to girls, and that's not the case. The thing that is harming these like young, these teenage girls he's talking about is kind of the very essence of social media. You go on there, you look at people living ideal lives, you feel some kind of envy that your life isn't like that, your boyfriend's not handsome like that and successful like that, and you're not living some sort of dream life that this other girl's living, and everyone is kind of creating this fake life that they're showing you, and you're maybe, because you're 15 years old, you don't know that it's fake. You don't have that discernment yet, and you may never get it. A lot of people never do, but 15 years old, you can't really blame them for that. But they're the 15 years old watching this and kind of confused, like, well, my life's not going like that. What's the deal? And the children of old, maybe watched television, and they'd watch Hannah Montana, and their life wouldn't be like Hannah Montana's, but everyone kind of knew that that was fake, that is a TV show, that it's a fiction, and that reality is not going to line up with that. That is not the same with social media, but there's no way to make social media, unless you just ban it for them, which would perhaps be a good thing, but unless you just ban it for them, there's no way for it not to damage them. So it's not like they're not showing girls like extremist content that's making them, mentally ill, which is kind of what his words insinuate here. And I guess I should say, because I just mentioned social media age banning, that really wouldn't work either. Like, it's up to the parents to keep your children off social media. Every kid's going to find a way around whatever sort of implementation you try to do to block them from getting on it. I'm getting distracted, but just kind of a side point. So this was a crazy point he was making. Yet another crazy point from him. And I know this isn't even a long clip that I'm harping on so much, but this was too much for me.
Got it.
Right.
And so, to the same degree, I think they, a lot of what you call wokeness was maybe an illegitimate, but a financial decision based on a lot of these
corporate psyop.
Okay, a financial decision on a part of these corporations. Who was threatening because we know that they make money based on advertisers. Why were the advertisers, why would the advertisers want these platforms to go a certain direction? Why do the advertisers hold some sway over the content? So when he's talking about, like these people want to make money, and it's just, he's implying that the bad aspects of social media exist because they generate more money in some sort of like behind the scenes scheme to make money at the expense of everyone, which there's like a grain of truth to it. But again, he's kind of ignoring like, who are these people that are pushing it in this direction? Why do the advertisers want social media to be a certain way? Otherwise, they won't give you money. Because you got to remember, these social media platforms, there's things like YouTube Premium, but for the most part, they're getting all their money from ad revenue. But he doesn't, touch that at all because he's got no idea what he's talking about. But watch what Andrew Callahan does here. We're going to go more on Hunter Biden in a second, but just a little weird little thing from this guy.
Maybe.
corporate psyop.
Thank you.
I mean, by the way, exactly.
Okay, look, he looks away. Let's back that up. He's looking at a producer or something, and watch what he does.
Exactly. I mean,
I just wanted to back up real quick. So you talked about certain people going too far. About 2.5 months ago, I visited a whites-only community in Hardy, Arkansas.
And he just like randomly, he looks at a producer and then randomly switches to a totally different topic and wants to talk about, there's Arval, wants to talk about like Eric Arval, Return of the Land. What is that about, Andrew Callahan? Like, this is a topic that is really good. It's going while of course I'm criticizing Hunter Biden to absolute death here. But this is a topic that is what Nick and Hunter are both basically the most famous for, especially Hunter. Kind of seems like the whole reason you had these two on would be to talk about a topic like this. So why does Andrew Callahan want to pivot to a completely random topic and bring up some internet beef that Nick has, which I'm not going to play this part, but he brings up an internet dispute that Nick has with the Return to the Land guys? Why? What is the reason? Just, demerit for this guy, for Callahan here. A little demerit for him for whatever the heck this is. Which I was thinking, like, I guess they told him, they're like, you got to bring this up for some reason. You know, whoever's, I guess, producing this is insisting that this be brought up. Whatever. But back to my other point with this, with Hunter Biden. Just had to bring up the kind of strangeness of Callahan's behavior. But back to Hunter Biden for a minute. It is obscene that we are expected to like listen to this guy at all. I'm so done with these like heirs to what I would say are failed dynasties. You know, I'm not interested in anyone from the Biden family. Biden was a bad president. I'm not interested in George Bush's brother, Jeb. Again, another kind of a leader who has really kind of ended up failing us. So I don't want Jeb. I don't want Hunter. I don't want to hear from Nayland Haley, Nikki Haley's son. Don't want to hear from Lindsey Graham's sister that they're now trying to run in my state. It's just like, not interested. I don't want to hear from, what is it, Chuck Schumer's niece? That's Amy Schumer's, I think, Chuck Schumer's niece. If I have that correct. Is it his daughter or his niece? I think it's his niece. Don't want to hear from any of these people that are related to these ghouls. That's not a pro in my book. I can't imagine that being, you know, seen as a good thing. But yet we keep getting them trotted out. So just kind of had to talk about the obscenity of what Hunter Biden was saying in this clip. And also, you can watch the rest of the interview. It's not as interesting as I thought it would be. It's just kind of like, Hunter's a boomer, you know? He's really kind of boomers out a lot. Just wanting to kind of moralize a lot of things, but he's totally the wrong person for that. He did another interview like months ago that I thought was a lot better. So this was just kind of a weird interview, not that great. And, you know, well, you already heard what I had to say about it, but demerit for Hunter Biden as well. I thought Nick made you know, some reasonable points during this, but not who this video is about, even though he's sitting there right in the center. All right, like and subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. See you next time.